Hello, so in this video, I'll be showing you how to model simple objects in Cinema4d. I'll be introducing you to the various modeling tools that Cinema4d has to offer, and hopefully by the end of this video, you should be able to model fairly simple geometry comfortably. Alright, so in Cinema4d, before you can model an object, you have to convert it from a primitive mesh to an editable mesh. So let me show you how you do that. Let's add in a cube. Now this cube currently is a primitive mesh, hence the parameters that are here. To convert it to an editable mesh, you just press C on your keyboard, then boom, it converts to an editable mesh. You'll notice you no longer have the primitive parameters here. Alright, there's another way to do it. Let me undo this, Ctrl Z. You can right click the cube from the object manager, then go down to make editable, and it converts it to an editable mesh. Now once an editable mesh, you have access to these modes here. This is the face selection mode, the edge selection mode, and the point selection mode. Now these modes allows you to select and modify the geometry more specifically. Let me show you for an example. Let's click on the face selection mode. If you click on the face selection mode and hover around the object, you will see different faces highlight up. So if I go over to the edge selection mode and hover around the object, you see the edges highlight up. And if I go over to the point selection mode, you see only the individual vertex, the individual point highlights up. Now if you come over here, you see the various modeling tools that Cinema4d has to offer. There are a lot more, but these are the ones you'll be making use of on a regular basis. So we have the move tool. If you click on the move tool, and you'll be able to select the part of the polygon corresponding to the mode you are in. So right now we are in the point selection mode. This gives us the ability to be able to select each individual point. So because we are using the move tool, we can now move the individual points. So you can see I'm selecting random points and moving them. Now let me undo all we have done, Ctrl Z. If I select on the edge selection mode and click on any of the edges, I can move it. So same thing goes for the face selection mode. I can click on random faces and move the random faces. Now if you notice something strange that happened when we were selecting the edge selection mode, whereby our axis was not pointed in the direction we want it to be pointed at. So right now, let's say we want this to move, on the proper y-axis. Right now, if you drag the y-axis gizmo, it won't really move in the y-axis. That is because it's currently in the object space. You can change between the object space and the world space by pressing W on your keyboard. So you see when I change, it also changes. And you can also do it by selecting this icon here. So whichever coordinate system you are using, either you are working in the object space or the world space, you choose the right one for the right usage you are working with at the time. So that is that about manipulating the basic form of the geometry. So now let me introduce you to a couple of tools. Let's add a new cube and press C on our keyboard to make it editable. Now if you go over here, you see the bevel tool. If you go down, you see the extrude. This is the bridge tool. If you hover on this list and you scroll down with your scroll wheel of your mouse, you'll see more tools. Here is the edge cut tool, also known, there are various shortcuts. The shortcut of Cinema4d is a bit weird. Okay, let me show you for instance. To add a loop cut in Cinema4d, it is you press K and you press L, KL. So that system, like some shortcuts in Cinema4d, might require you to press 2 keys. Just keep that in mind. But we'll not bother ourselves with that. Today I'll just show you 3 tools that I'll be working with for what we are doing. Alright, so the first tool will be the extrude tool. Once you click on the extrude tool, to best use the extrude tool, you move to the face selection mode. Then when you hover around a face and click on it and drag, it will extrude the polygon for you. You see, take your time to practice this so that you will have fun with it. So I'll undo everything right now. Now with the same extrude, if I click on a face, extrude a little bit, and I press T on my keyboard, or I go here and click on the scale tool, I can scale down the face. Then go back to the extrude tool, pick up the extrude tool, go back to the face and drag. So that will give us a unique looking geometry. So I can do it again. I'm currently on the extrude tool, extrude a little bit, go to the scale tool, scale it down, go back to the extrude tool and extrude a little bit. So I'll press Ctrl A and select all the faces, then pick the rotate tool and rotate on the Z axis. I'll press shift while I'm rotating to make it rotate in actual rounded figures. So like right now it's at 90 degrees. So move to the move tool, then Ctrl A, then I'll adjust it. So this looks like a skyscraper. A low budget skyscraper. Okay, let's delete the cube. Let's add another cube. So that is that for the extrude tool. I made the cube editable by pressing C on the keyboard. So now when I go to my tool rack and I use the scroll wheel to scroll down, there's a tool called the loop particle tool. This tool, when you click on it, it gives you the ability to cut your mesh into more polygons. So now I click on it, you see that a outline comes up. So I can cut it into more polygons. So now this combined with the extrude tool will give us the ability to modify this geometry even more. So I'll go back to the loop cut tool, cut it here again, go back to the extrude tool, go here and extrude. Yeah, sometimes when you are dragging, if you mistakenly drag the gizmo, you'll move the tool. Now there is a shortcut for everything we are using. Now let me show you the shortcut for it. I'll add another cube, press C on the keyboard. The shortcut to extrude is D on the keyboard. When you press D on the keyboard and hover around the face, D on the keyboard, then click and drag. That is the shortcut for the extrude tool. You can hover around the tool, it will also show you the shortcut. There's another shortcut for it. If you press M, then press T on the keyboard, it's also another shortcut, but just stick with D. D is easier. Same thing with loop cut. The loop cut tool has its own shortcut. Its shortcut is a bit tricky. To use the shortcut of the loop cut tool, press K on the keyboard, a menu comes up on the screen, then you press L. So you do it quickly, so K, L, then you have your loop cut tool. So now with that, let's model a very simple spoon. I feel spoon is like the simplest thing to model right now for a low poly spoon. So we add a cube, we press C on our keyboard to make it an editable mesh. We press T on our keyboard, we still remember our shortcut for the move, rotate and scale. So that is E for move, R for rotate and T for scale. So you will press T on the keyboard and scale it on the Y axis. You see it squishes the cube a little bit and extend it on the X axis, extend it a bit on the Z axis. Then overall I'll go far and scale everything down a bit overall. So now find one of the sides of the spoon, click on it, press D on the keyboard, extrude it a bit out, press T on the keyboard for the scale to scale it a bit inwards, then drag on the, this is the X axis now, a bit inward, move to the move tool, a bit outward rather, then drag it up a bit. Okay, now press D on the keyboard and extrude it a bit more. We're not working with real world scale for a proper spoon. I'm just completely airballing it so that you will feel comfortable with it and you to feel free to airball it. There is no law, especially in this stage of production. Alright, so here you can extrude it a bit more and scale it in a bit. So this is our spoon, right? It doesn't look spoonish. Alright, so click the top face where the spoon dent should be, press D on the keyboard, extrude it a little bit inward, then scale it in. So you press T on the keyboard and you scale it in. So this is our spoon. You see our spoon is all boxed out. So to make our spoon smooth, go back to the model mode, add a subdivision surface modifier, then drag the cube under the subdivision surface modifier. And you see it makes our boxed out spoon a lot smoother. Now if you notice, we want here to be a lot slimmer. We want it to be a bit smoother around some of the edges. So for the smoothness, you can click subdivision surface modifier and increase the subdivision count for both the viewport and the render to like 3. So you see everything is smooth now. But now for the thinning of the edge here, you might have to disable the subdivision surface modifier to make it easy for you to see. So this checkbox, click on it to disable it. So now we are back to our boxy looking shape. Then ensure you are clicking on the cube, not the subdivision surface modifier. Then go back to the face selection mode. Then remember our loop cut. That's K and L for our loop cut. Or you go down here and pick the loop cut tool. So K and L to enable the loop cut tool, or we add a loop cut here and a loop cut here. Once we enable the subdivision surface modifier, it will trim the smoothness to fit in the way we want it to fit. So this is our low poly spoon. Now I enable the subdivision surface modifier and I can still edit the shape. You see the outline of the original box shape is showing. That's what I'm working with. To directly affect the shape, you have to click on the subdivision surface modifier itself and make that an editable mesh. But let's not work that way today. So we'll click on the cube, go to the move tool, pick it down, bring it lower a bit, then click the inside. Remember there should be a mesh inside here, and bring it inward a bit. What we can also do is go to the edge selection tool, select this edge and bring it down a bit. Select this edge, bring it up a bit. And we have our spoon. Okay, I don't think I'm happy with this side. I feel like this side is artistic. So we can go with the face selection tool, press shift on our keyboard, hold shift on our keyboard and select the faces. Then move it in a bit. Note, we are not working with real world scale, so we're just eyeballing everything till it looks good in our eye. Then bring it in a bit. Even though this spoon is not symmetrical, the spoon works for what I need it to do. Okay, I can still extend it a bit. So at this point, I'm just adjusting and adjusting and adjusting. So when I go back to the object mode, you see now we have our spoon or a shovel. It depends on whatever skill you are working with. It could be a spoon or a shovel. So let's make a bow with our previous knowledge to work with this. So to make a bow, we'll add the arc. Then we add a lathe modifier. Then drag the arc into the lathe. Then you see it extends our arc round to a hemisphere. We click on lathe and we rotate our lathe 180 degrees. You press it on the keyboard to round it up. Then use the move tool to move the bowl into place. You might have to scale up the bowl so that it will work in scale in respect to the spoon. Alright, so let's move our spoon upward and rotate it. I'm clicking on the subdivision surface modifier. You will move the cube, it will affect your origin point. So most times work with the hierarchy. So I'll move this into the bowl. Yes. Rotate it fully. Then click on the lathe. And so now click on the lathe and we'll add a clothes surface modifier. Drag the lathe and put it under the clothes surface modifier. Click on the clothes surface, go to the thickness and increase the thickness. When you increase the thickness, it gives our bow some thickness. Now you can lower the subdivisions of the clothes modifier to 0 so that it won't subdivide it. Then you can now add another subdivision surface modifier to it to smoothen the bow. You see it smoothens the bow. If I disable the subdivision surface modifier, see it has hard edges. So now we smoothen the bow. So now we have our bow and spoon. We can have a plane and scale of the plane. So I added a plane and scaled up the plane. So I will quickly add materials with Cinema4d basic internal materials. So go to the materials tab, create a material, put it here, drag it onto it. So you see, you apply the material to the plane. Add another material, drag it to the subdivision surface object. Add another material, drag it to the subdivision surface object for the cube. But remember, the spoon started with the cube and the bow started with the spline. So there are many ways to achieve what you want to achieve. We could have also gotten the bowl by going to sphere, adding a sphere, scaling the sphere, click on the sphere, then change it to a hemisphere. Then from there, work the same way we worked. We'll just add in a closed surface modifier, put it in, and increase the thickness. That will also work. So there are a lot of ways to achieve it in Cinema4d. So let's close our hierarchy. So now, the first material, double click on it to bring out the material editor. The material editor now has a lot of lists, but this is the material editor for the Cinema4d inbuilt render engine, which I'm just using this for demonstration. For practicality, I use Corona because Corona render engine is way easier and it gives way better results. So in the color, I can change the color to like red, or let's say a brown. I'm not good with colors, so I don't know the exact name for this color. Let's call it leather brown. For the bow, I'll make it maybe green. Yeah, I think I used to have a green bow. Yeah, before it broke. Okay, let me make it dark green. Then for the spoon, let's make it blue. You can make it any color you want. Do whatever color you want, and let me see it. Post it on your IG and tag me on it, so I'll see it. So I'll move up the bowl a bit so that it will be intersecting with the table. So now we can frame up our scene very well. Let me show you how to render out this image. Go to this render settings here, click on it. You see we're working with standard render setting. Go to save. Set the file format. Set it to JPEG. So this will render out our image in form of a JPEG file. Click here to select the location you want to save it in and save it there. So from here on, close the render settings, then press the render button. This is the render button in Cinema4d. Render in picture viewer. So now we have rendered our scene. So this is our first render. So let me see your own render. You can go overboard and create whatever you want. Heck, you can add a figure to the scene, scale up the figure, add a weird material to it, and do some cool stuff with it. Add a weird material to it, let's say like a green. Do some cool stuff to it. That will be that for modeling today. So a more advanced modeling tutorial will address a lot more complex tools and techniques in modeling. I hope we were able to follow up with the tutorial. If you have any questions, please do drop them in the comment section below, and I will make sure to answer every one of them. Do remember to subscribe and turn on notifications to get informed as soon as the next tutorial video is out. Till then, stay creative.